My name is Eric Gustafsson, and I'm the ESL specialist for the Student Academic Learning Services. Today I'm going to be talking about editing skills, and hopefully we'll be able to see ways to improve your skills, help your grades, and your overall writing confidence. To begin with, I'm going to talk about the importance of editing. Then I'll give you an opportunity for some editing practice. Then I'll talk about 20 common grammar errors. Then I'll discuss the editing process. And finally, I'll show you an editing resource. In the following slide, there will be a brief statement, and I'd like you to read the statement and see if you can spot the error. I'll give you about 7 seconds. Here we go. Did you find the error? If you didn't see it, we're going to look at the statement again and see if we can improve your detection of the problem. Now take a look at this sentence again, and I'm going to slow the pace down just a little bit, and I'm going to highlight each word. So when I highlight the word, I'd like you to say it out loud and repeat it with me. Follow the pacing. There is nothing quite like Paris in the spring. You will have quite clearly now noticed that there are two thes in this sentence, and you may have found that quite surprising. The reason you may not have noticed them the first time is because of your expectations. You know that in a sentence like this, it's unlikely that there would be two thes next to each other. However, your brain doesn't expect this and can easily edit out the extra wording. This is even more prevalent in your own writing. When you've written the sentence, you know the grammar, and it's very unlikely that you would be able to catch an error of this type. The way we detected this is trifold. We have 3 different ways. One is we slowed down our speech a little bit and focused on each word. The other is we recited it out loud. And the third is we maintained the same pace right through to the very end. Okay, I'd like you to open up a document called Editing Practice. This document is located in the resource files of the Editing Skills module in DC Connect SALS. The document looks like this, and it's a paragraph filled with errors, 24 errors, and I'd like you to, either on the screen or with a printout of this document, try and identify all of the errors. While you're doing that, you can pause the video, and then when it's finished, come back and we'll discuss the 20 common grammar errors and give you another opportunity to fix this paper and improve your results. Okay, presumably you've now finished the editing practice document and marked your errors. And now we're going to discuss some of the most common grammatical errors that people make in their writing. And hopefully, after we discuss this, you'll have some ideas of what some of your errors are, and perhaps you'll be able to improve your results on the editing practice document. The way this section of the video is set up is that the name of the error is in bold above, and then there's an example that follows. And I'll do my best to explain each part of it and the reasons for the correction. So in this case, we have no comma after introductory phrases or words. So in the example sentence, under the car we found the cat, there's a missing comma. And we need to put the comma after the introductory phrase. So if you were guessing that the comma belongs after the word car, you're correct. Under the car is an introduction, and then we found the cat is the main sentence. So we need a comma to separate them. Number 2, no comma in compound sentence. Compound sentence just means that 2 complete sentences have been attached to each other, and in this case, the sentence is, doctors are concerned about the rising death rate from cancer, but they don't know the cause of it. So the first complete sentence is doctors are concerned about the rising death rate from cancer. The second complete sentence is they don't know the cause of it. The two sentences have been joined by the word but, and the word but is a coordinating conjunction. However, it cannot stand alone. It needs to have the comma. So we're joining two sentences with a comma plus the word but. I'm going to stop for a moment and talk about the word but. As I mentioned, it's a coordinating conjunction that is used to connect sentences together when combined with a comma. Other coordinating conjunctions can be remembered by using this acronym, Fanboys. These small words, all of them are very familiar, including for, and, nor, but, or, yet, and so, are the words that are used to, when combined with a comma, generally, can be used to join two complete sentences together. Okay, so that's the Fanboys acronym. Sometimes I refer to that, or you may hear other people referring to it. Number 3, no commas around non-restrictive clauses. So a non-restrictive clause means some extra information that's not essential to the sentence. Mary, who lives nearby, was helping by packing books into boxes. Is any part of that sentence clearly not essential for you to understand the main sentence? If you were guessing who lives nearby, you're correct. If we remove who lives nearby, we would have Mary was helping by packing books into boxes, which is completely understandable and, in fact, a complete sentence. So the who lives nearby is just a little bit of extra information for the reader. And when you have a non-restrictive clause, you have to put commas on both sides of it. So we have Mary, who lives nearby, was helping by packing books into boxes. Number 4, unnecessary commas with restrictive clauses. Now this is the opposite to number 3. In this case, we have a restrictive clause, which means it's essential to the sentence. Without this clause, you wouldn't understand the sentence. So can you identify the restrictive clause? If you said that I want, you're correct. We have the car that I want is out of my price range. However, because this is a restrictive clause, without it, we don't know which car is out of my price range. So we need it. In that case, when we need it and it's a restrictive clause, we don't use commas around it. Number 5, lack of a comma in a series. So a series is another way of saying a list. The sidewalk was filled with shouting parents, crying children, and police. Where would you put the commas? If you said after shouting parents and after crying children, you're correct. The reason the second comma, if you look here, we put a second comma in here. Sometimes this comma is considered optional. However, in this case, it helps to clarify the meaning that there are 3 distinct groups. We have shouting parents, crying children, and police. Without that second comma, we would have shouting parents, crying children, and police. It's possible for the reader to mistake the meaning of the sentence and take it as the police were also crying. Now, maybe you didn't, but this is why we put the second comma in, to make it absolutely clear to the reader that there are 3 separate elements. Often this optional comma is used in academic writing. Number 6, comma splice. Now, if you look at the sentence, I didn't know which job to take, both offered exciting possibilities. Basically, we have 2 complete sentences separated by a comma. Now, one way to repair this would be to add one of the fanboys. So I didn't know which job to take, comma, but both offered exciting possibilities. But in this case, rather than using one of the fanboys, There's another way to tie two sentences together. It's called a semicolon. So instead, we replace the comma with a semicolon. The semicolon is used when the writer wants to show that the two sentences presented are very closely connected. Number 7, a run-on sentence. The man walked into the store, he didn't buy anything. In this case, again, we have two complete sentences. The man walked into the store, and the other sentence, he didn't buy anything. Each sentence could stand on its own, and if that's the case, then we have a run-on sentence with no punctuation between the sentences. So that's an error. So the way to repair this could be to have the comma and add in a coordinating conjunction, one of the fanboys. So in this case, we've chosen the man walked into the store, comma, but he didn't buy anything. Number 8, sentence fragment. If you look at the sentence, when I walked into the room, you likely feel as though it's incomplete. You'd be right. We need to replace the period and add in the second part of the sentence after a comma. When I walked into the room, what happened? So when I walked into the room, I tripped and fell. This would work as a complete sentence. Vague pronoun references. My friends and family visited me at the cottage. They suddenly jumped into the lake. The problem here is that the pronoun they is unclear as to who it's referring. So is it referring to my friends or my family or both? It's not clear. So if we're to assume that everybody jumped into the lake, we could do something like saying they all suddenly jumped into the lake. And now it's much clearer that everybody jumped in. Pronoun agreement error. In this case, we're talking about every student knows they should study. When we're discussing every student, you realize that that's talking about each student one by one, each one. And later in the sentence, you can see the word they, which talks about more than one person. So if we're talking about students one by one, and we have they, that's where the conflict arises. So we need some way of saying that it's more than one student if we keep they. Now we have all student knows they should study. Is this correct? No, it's not. We need to move that S and say all students know they should study. Now we've got it. Number 11, subject-verb agreement. The whole team are going to Europe this year. The subject is the whole team. The word are is the verb, and this is not correct for a team because a team is a single thing. If you were saying many, like the team members are going to Europe this summer, that would be okay. But in this case, we have to replace are with is. The whole team is going to Europe this year. Number 12, tense shift. I ate breakfast, then walked to school. If you notice the two verbs here, ate and walk, ate is in past tense and walk is in present tense. So we have to make sure that all the verbs in the sentence match in tense. So in this case, we'll change walk to walked, and now we have the whole sentence in past tense. I ate breakfast and walked to school. Number 13, wrong tense or verb form. In this case, to repair this problem, we would have to remove ain't because it is not a correct word. So we'll put is not or isn't. And broke needs to be changed to broken. So we have, if it isn't broken, don't fix it. As a side note, in academic writing, I would generally not use contractions like isn't or don't. You would say is not or do not. Number 14, wrong word choice. Everyone except the principal complimented the committee on its work. There are 4 words in this sentence that are not the correct words. The first one is accept. This means to accept your new salary or accept the change in your life. Principle, which means the first or primary point. Complement, which means, for example, that color complements your eyes. And it's, which means it is. So in order to correct the spelling and the words, we need to go with everyone except. This means other than the principal. Principal is spelled Principal. One memory trick to remember this spelling is to think of the word pal at the end. Pal is another way of saying friend, and if you said the principal is my pal, that might help you remember the spelling. Complimented should be complimented. This means when you give someone a compliment. You did a great job today. The committee on its work, the apostrophe should be removed because the committee is not a person, it's a thing. So we say its work. Number 15, wrong, missing, inflected endings. I like fresh squeezed orange juice. Sometimes you'll hear this on television commercials or from people, but the word should be I like freshly squeezed orange juice. Squeezed is the verb and freshly is the adverb. Number 16, wrong, missing prepositions. Prepositions are those words that we use such as in, on, at, of, to, and so on. The first example is, should it be different than or different from? In academic writing, should be different from. This is different from that. Different than is more of a conversational style. And number 2, I'll meet up with my friend later. The word up is unnecessary, and so we should remove it. It's more of a conversational style, and if you remove it, we end up with I'll meet with my friend later, which is the same message. Number 17, unnecessary shift in person. When one is healthy, you shouldn't worry about wealth. Person means, in this case, we have one and you. That's one way of addressing people when one is healthy, and we have to match. So if you're doing academic writing and you want to be more formal, you could say when one is healthy, one should not worry about wealth. Or when you are healthy, you shouldn't worry about wealth. 18. Possessive apostrophe error. One of these phrases means more than one student, and one of them means one student. Do you know which one is singular and which is plural? So when you put student apostrophe S, it means one student, one student's pens. And when you put the S before the apostrophe, that indicates a plural, so many students' pens. Number 19, the it's and its error. So one of these I briefly talked about earlier, and the first one, it's with the apostrophe, means it is. And then the second one is a possessive. So which one goes in which space? It's not the time for the bank to balance its budget. It is not the time for the bank to balance its budget. And the last one, number 20, dangling misplaced modifier. Freshly painted, John left the room to dry. The confusion here is what was freshly painted. Was it John or the room? Generally, when we have a modifier such as this, freshly painted, we're modifying something. And the way this is read, because this modifier is close to John, then we can read it as though John has been freshly painted and he left the room to dry. But the real way is more likely to be the room was freshly painted and John left it to dry. The way to repair this is simply to move the modifier closer to the thing it's modifying. So in this case, we have our modifier as freshly painted, and we need to move it closer to the room. So we can start with John left the freshly painted room to dry. In the resource files of the Editing Skills module, you can find this document, 20 Common Grammatical Errors, which is a rundown of all of the errors that we've just discussed in the past section of this video. If you download it and print it out, you can then go ahead and add in all of the punctuation and changes that we've made to help you better remember them. And once you've done that, then I'd encourage you to go back to the Editing Skills document that you looked at with the practice paragraph so that you can see if you can improve your results and find all 24 errors. If you cannot find all 24 errors, or you've found more than 24, then check the answer sheet which accompanies the paragraph on the second page. And again, if you print it out from the resource files of the DC Connect cells in the Editing Skills module. Now I'd like to look at the editing process. So when you sit down to edit a paper, if it's an assignment of some kind, an essay or report, you want to begin at the content level. This is where you check your rubric to make sure that you've met all the criteria. You identify the purpose of the assignment, make sure that you have the appropriate content and tone and style. Check your organization. Does the way you've organized the information make sense? Will it make sense to the reader? Check for smooth transitions between your ideas and make sure that your ideas are clear for the reader. Once you've finished all that and you're satisfied that you're not going to add any more text or you're not going to take away any text, then it's time to move to the grammar and spelling and punctuation level. At this point, you look at the grammar and form, spelling, word choice, tense choice, and punctuation. This is mostly what we've concentrated on during this video presentation, and this would be considered the editing process. The last resource I'd like to show you is Proofreading, and this document is available for downloading in the resources under the Editing Skills module in the DC Connect cells. The document looks like this. It's called Proofreading Your Paper. And it basically, if you look at it, it looks like a checklist. Have you completed all assignment requirements? Are the statements you make accurate and consistent? So based on content, overall structure, structure within paragraphs, clarity, style, and so on. So this is a checklist. If you go through it point by point, and you can answer yes to the questions, then you've looked at it from various different perspectives, and you can at least ensure that it's on the right track. The opposite side of the paper, it's a two-sided paper, has some tips for proofreading, tips and strategies. Basically, one of the most important ones is this one: find out your errors, find out what errors you typically make so that you can watch for those. Make sure you have enough time. Are your sentences clear? You have to remember that when they seem clear to you, they might not necessarily be clear to your reader. So this is something to think about. And also at the bottom of the page has general strategies like take a break and read out loud and others. So make sure that you look at this document. It'll help a lot with your proofreading and editing. Please feel free to send us an email or call if you have any questions regarding this presentation, and we welcome your feedback. Thanks very much for watching.